everyone. Good to see you all. I really appreciate your efforts and concern about the prevailing situation in Kashmir. My sincere thanks to Kia for inviting me to share my anguish over the harsh realities of Jammu and Kashmir that has become one of the most volatile places in the world. I will be sharing my thoughts mostly about, as Marina was saying, about Kashmiri woman who is at the front bearing all the brunt of this deadliest situation. Jammu and Kashmir is suffering in silence at the moment, facing death and destruction every day, losing hope of living a normal day, normal life. Human Rights Day is celebrated every year, and we all attempt to become part of this great event. It gives us a chance to highlight the plight of subjugated and suppressed people across the globe with this purpose that they will be heard, they will get justice, and they won't get let down by international community. Think of the people whose political, economic, and social rights have been snatched, whose kids have not seen school for almost 18 months, whose women have to go through humiliations, and whose youth have to keep hiding even their phones. Every moment of the day, where will they look for help? From whom will they seek support? And who will become their savior? Do we, as human rights activists, supporters, or sympathizers, really become the voice of forcibly made mute population? Do we try in seeking intervention of policymakers in breaking the cycle of the violence? And do we engage different governments for resolution of the core issue that could give a chance of new lease of life to the forgotten, tormented, and deprived population of Kashmir? These few compelling questions are hovering over every Kashmiri's mind who are suffering from the degradation of their basic dignity since the partition of the subcontinent in 47. The life and livelihood of 12 million people has become a cheap sport for unprecedented number of security forces in the valley who enjoy impunity under the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. I can tell you every single soul in Kashmir has a horrible story to tell. Since 5th August 2019, when in a broad daylight, 12 million people were robbed of their constitution, identity, status that was enshrined in the Indian constitution itself, and when state of Jammu and Kashmir was downgraded to 2 union territories, more than 100 central laws have been implemented, disempowering local indigenous population, which has culminated into evictions and demolitions of their dwellings recently. The argument given by the BJP government was to integrate Kashmir with India for development and normalcy that would ensure peaceful life and enhance means of livelihood. But Kashmir since then has turned into a biggest concentration camp, losing the semblance of any normality now. Scrapping Article 370 could not succeed in ending the long struggle for political rights as it was meant to be. Indeed, instead, it has been attracting many young and teenage boys to join in. Every day, young lives are consumed by the violence, and human dignity is reduced by intensified humiliating acts and ordinances. According to recent figures, and Irshad might bear me out, more than 200 people have been killed since 5th August in encounters, searches, and these cordon operations, whatever they call it, and funeral gatherings. People cannot talk, reporters cannot write, netizens cannot post on social platforms, or women cannot complain because of harsh and discriminatory restrictive laws recently implemented which can put them into jail without any trial for many months. Traders, lawyers, journalists, civil activists, politicians, young, kids, and women are forced to write bonds for keeping silence and accepting disempowerment of their basic rights. The digital lockdown for more than a year has caused loss of more than $3 billion to Kashmir trade, and thousands of workers have become jobless. And their losses have now doubled due to this pandemic. International community that has become aware of the Hindutva agenda seems mostly tight-lipped on the plight of Jammu and Kashmir, and 12 million people of Jammu and Kashmir have a question for this community. Cannot your muteness amount to criminal silence? To give you the sense of helplessness Kashmiri women are feeling, I would take a chance to read a page of my book that is a continuation of my first novel, Lost in Terror, which has a focus mainly on the women of conflict zone. This is not the story of Mrs. Parveen Ahangar, who sits in protest at Pratap Parak for one day every month, waiting to know about her missing son, who was arrested 30 years before. But this is a story of more than 10,000 women whose husbands have never returned home after they disappeared in custody since the eruption of armed movement in Jammu and Kashmir. They have got now nothing left except hope. I won't be relating the story of Kunan Poshpora's young girl Bhakti, who has not overcome the nightmares of the fateful night of early 90s when she failed an attempt to jump out of a window after witnessing her mother and 40 other women groped and gang raped by hundreds of soldiers who had come to cordon off the twin villages of Kupwara. But I will relate you the story of Shbayan's Nilofer and Asya, who were abducted and raped in the dark of the night. Their bodies had become rotten in the heap of the rain-soaked crops they had gone to harvest for the winter. Their blood-stained and torn trousers are still hanging in their balcony. The character of this story is not the 8-year-old nomad girl of Rasana, who was abducted, drugged, raped, and stoned to death by her Hindu neighbors, but those young girls living on the line of control are main characters of my story, who under the guise of frisking are getting molested every day while passing through bunkers to school. They cannot whiff about it due to the threat of getting their parents killed in mysterious conditions. My story may not tell you the hardships or stigma faced by the hundreds of women of Dardpora village, which we have named as Half Widows Village, but those 500 physically crippled widows of Shanglipura might transcend you to the meadows of Tos Maidan, whose husbands were killed during weeding and grazing their cattle when army soldiers had left live ammunition and remnants of unexploded shells after their military exercise in the area. Let me not delve into the marital status of 40 years old 40,000 women of Kashmir who did not get married because most of the boys they were engaged to got killed in the armed movement. Even they couldn't be traced after being buried at unknown places without names on their graves. Rather, I will delve into the story of millions of married women waiting outside their homes during search and cordon operations when their husbands are taken away to a field for identification parade to see if they will return back to them. Our women cannot afford to stay alone at home. They live under constant fear of barging soldiers. Do not compel me to make you to hear the screams of thousands of women whose fathers, brothers, sons, husbands, including Seher's father, have been languishing in Indian jails for decades and seem forgotten now. But I will not let you walk away from the sobs of those 13,000 mothers whose innocent children as young as 12 years were taken out of bed in the middle of the night of 4th August 2019 and were placed in unknown prisons thousands of miles away from Kashmir. Some mothers keep screaming during every night, even if their sons have returned recently. There are 4 million women in my book who you might find funny for being considered symbol of courage, strength, martyrdom, and bravery. But there are no expressions or words to describe their turning into stones and rocks, and no way to find the timeline of how long it took them to get their tears dried up. They do not close their eyes. They only gaze at the dark shadows. This page cannot tell you the despair of the thousands of working women who have become accustomed to showing their ID cards every after 10 to 20 meters to security guards at every nook and cranny of the valley, and how they have learned the art of covering their faces in order to avoid the smirk of the soldiers. But my page may take a snippet of a 60-year fishmonger near the Amira Kadal Bridge, who now finds it amusing to watch dribbling soldiers from nearby bunker and makes fun of repeating the scene of pulling out guts of fish in front of him. In this story, there is no space left for security women of UP who would take pleasure in searching women's bodies in interrogation centers, then expose them to her male counterparts to ridicule and taunt these stripped and lifeless bodies. But there will be a proper place for Arundhati Roy, who has become the voice of them and gives them hope to stay alive. The theme of my book will not include the rising suicide cases of the army soldiers after they watch the mutilation of the dead bodies killed by their colleagues during the fake encounters, but it will involve the story of special forces that set fire to the hut and paddy stock of 80-year-old woman of South Kashmir and forced her to beg for shelter and food. My story has deliberately ignored the dream of a mother of Burhan Wani who wanted to give him higher education. Instead, he vowed to fight against the atrocities he witnessed during operations. But I cannot afford to ignore 10,000 young boys and girls who have been deprived of their eyesight by indiscriminate firing of pellets and bullets. Their eyes have become now dead sockets. I'm not courageous enough to speak about the 4-year-old Hiba who had undergone several eye surgeries after she got pellets in her eye, but I feel elated to mention Insha, a brave girl of Shupayan who passed her board examination despite losing her both eyes. 65% of the women in my story are declared to be psychologically ill as a result of the constant violence, daily funerals, and loss of livelihood. But there is a mention of few counselors and psychiatrists who have become schizophrenic by the magnitude of ailing mental health in the valley. Mention of those ordinary women is a least priority who have lost the courage to live, not to speak of increasing domestic violence or harassment in institutions. I will never mention any such commission or probe that has no powers to deal with hidden horror stories eating away Kashmiri women. This is the first page of my book that paints only few shades of women's life in Kashmir. As you know, Kashmir is considered the paradise on earth, or you might call it the Switzerland of Asia. But political turmoil, border clashes, betrayals, bloodshed, and now vendetta policy of Hindutva have made Kashmiri place as a beautiful hell on the earth, and because now the woman finds herself surrounded by gun and gunmen only. I want to ask you a question. Shall we wait to see her dying slow death, or we should keep crying our heart out to wake up this mute and silent world to listen to her sobs and save her from further degradation and dehumanization? Thank you very much for listening to me with patience.
Thank you, Naeema ji.